Hello everyone and welcome back to another video here on the YouTube channel, and today I'm going to be going through my tips and predictions for this week's AFL round 17. Now if you guys do go on to enjoy today's video, as always, could you please show me that by liking the video as well as subscribing to the channel if you guys are new. Enough wasting your time, let's get straight into it. Now before we do get into things, let me quickly acknowledge the fact that I do have a tipping comp over on the ESPN app for the 2025 AFL season. Let's see how many members we can get before the end of the AFL season. If you want to join yourself, the link to join is in the description below. If you do finish first place, you do receive a cash prize of $100 as well as an external second and third place prize. Second place you receive $30 and third place you receive $15. Currently in third place is ESPN Fan. Second place is DeConti H, and in first place is Ben Rafferty. I did jump up to 26 in my tipping comp last week after scoring a perfect round 7 out of 7, so I won't be running through my incorrect tips this week as I did get them all correct. I did go all favourites last week though, which I know some people weren't happy about in the comment section, but to be honest I didn't really feel like there was bound to be many upsets. There was almost a few with the Melbourne game and obviously the St Kilda game, but the favourites still ended up winning that game, so I'm pretty happy with myself. Anyway, let's just get into this week's AFL tipping. And to kick off the round on the Thursday at 7:30 PM, we have the North Melbourne Kangaroos taking on the Western Bulldogs at Marvel Stadium. Look, let's face it, the Dogs are probably going to smash them this week. Both teams are very familiar with playing at Marvel Stadium as it is their home ground, but the Dogs are obviously coming off a 9-point win against the Sydney Swans last week. They honestly should have pumped the Swans, but luckily they did still run away with the win. As for North Melbourne, they did lose by 85 points against the Hawthorn Hawks, which is absolutely shocking. I understand not many people went into that game with high expectations for North Melbourne, but come on, you got to put up a bit more of a fight. Some positives though for North Melbourne. Nick Lucky did kick 5 goals last week. He was really the only hope North Melbourne had last week. But I mean, McKercher had the most disposals of the day with 34, which isn't too bad if might I add. The Dogs though, Fraser is coming off a 4-goal game. Norden had the opportunity to kick 5, but instead kicked 3 goals too. Bramble had 28 touches last week, and I mean, when you have Bailey Dale averaging 28 disposals and Liberatore averaging 27, that midfield is really going to be hard to beat. Not to mention the obvious names in Marcus Bontempelli. So sure, North Melbourne do have a pretty strong forward line, but if the mids can't get it up there, they're really going to struggle, which is why I am going to tip the Bulldogs to win in an absolute thrashing. Let's go Dogs by 60 points. Now moving on to the Friday, a game that I'm a little bit worried about, but shouldn't be too bad. At 7:20 PM at the MCG, we have the Carlton Blues taking on the Collingwood Magpies. Look, I understand that there is a huge skill gap between both of these teams, but the rivalry is absolutely huge. It doesn't matter how good the teams are. It doesn't matter how different the teams are in skill. It typically tends to be a close game. Earlier in the year, these two teams did face off, and it just seems like Carlton could not hold up in the wet weather footy, which is why Collingwood did run away in the second half. But this could be a make or break for Carlton, meaning that they probably do have to win this game if they want any hope of making finals this year, just to slightly prove themselves. And I mean, when you're going up against a team that's currently top of the ladder, it's going to be pretty hard. But to be honest, I feel like our forward line is a lot stronger than the Carlton back line, which is why I think we will be able to kick away this game. And I feel like Pies could get up by 40 points here, but because of the rivalry, Carlton will make it interesting. I'll go Pies by 20. And later that night over at Optus Stadium at 8:20 PM, we have the West Coast Eagles taking on the GWS Giants, and this is going to be another pumping. I understand that the West Coast Eagles do have the home ground advantage, but that home ground advantage really has not benefited them much this year. Sure, their only win of the season was at Optus Stadium against St Kilda, but I feel like the Giants and St Kilda are very, very different. Although, I mean, the Giants are officially out of the top 8 after last week's round, but there's never been a period of time this year where the West Coast Eagles have been in the top 8. So, to be fair, the odds for this one are a lot closer than what they should be. West Coast Eagles, $4.10 compared to the Giants, $1.24. They're still not close odds though. This will be 18th on the ladder taking on 9th place. Tom McCarthy is averaging 30 disposals a game, similar to Tom Green from the Giants, who was also averaging 30, but the Giants are clearly the better team overall. Ash is averaging 29, Callahan's averaging 27, Whitfield's averaging 28. I mean, let's face it, I think both me and all of Australia agree that West Coast really are going to struggle getting up this week and the Giants will kick away. To be fair though, So West Coast played a pretty good 3 quarters of footy last week against the Pies, which is pretty impressive considering it's last on the ladder, taking on first on the ladder. But you always knew they weren't going to hold up in the 4th quarter. That's why I was not worried at all. Giants will win this game. We'll go Giants by 40. Now moving on to this Saturday at 12:35 p.m, we have the Essendon Bombers taking on the Gold Coast Suns. This game will be at Marvel Stadium. Both teams do have a pretty strong forward line, with the Gold Coast Suns having obviously Ben King, Ben Long, Essendon having Peter Wright, Nate Caddy, young gun Isaac Kako. He's really been improving the last few weeks. Anderson, he's been a really, really good player over in the Gold Coast Suns midfield. And obviously Parrish and Caldwell haven't gone unnoticed for the Bombers. Jared Witts though, I feel like this is probably one of his best seasons he's ever played in the ruck, averaging 43 hitouts a game. Essendon are coming fresh off a bye, so they will have some fresh legs and ready to go. As for the Gold Coast Suns though, they don't typically play too well away, but they will go into this game with some high confidence after getting a 19-point win last week at home. I'd almost consider tipping an upset this week in Essendon, but I feel like they're very hard to trust. They are currently 13th on the ladder, and the Suns have just snuck their way back into 8th place. So I feel like this is a game that the Suns really need to win. If they want to prove that they've got what it takes to play finals footy this year, they really need to win this one. I think at Marvel Stadium though, Essendon will hold up. I'm not going to tip an upset here, but I think the Bombers will stay in it. Suns will win by a goal. Now moving on to the next game at 4:15 p.m, we head up to Geelong for the GMHBA clash between the Geelong Cats and the Richmond Tigers. Well, we're all tipping Richmond, aren't we? Obviously that's a joke. Geelong, they have dropped down a spot last week after they did have the bye, meaning they do have fresh legs going into this week. Richmond though, what a shocking 4 quarters of football they played last week. Lost the game against Adelaide by 68 points. Obviously the Cats do have some star players in Bailey Smith, Max Holmes, Jeremy Cameron, Grime Myers and Atkins I feel like have played really well as well. As for Richmond, they're likely to be without Tom Lynch this week. I'm sure we've all seen the incident last week where he just starts swinging at players for absolutely no reason. But Cats should go into this game. Really heavy favourites, obviously, and they will pump the Richmond Tigers this week. Cats will win by 50. There should be a few blowouts this round, which I feel like a few weeks ago, this upcoming game would probably have been considered a blowout for me between the Brisbane Lions and the Port Adelaide Power at 7:35 p.m. on the Saturday, especially as this is going to be the Brisbane Lions home game at the Gabba. But after a pretty impressive game of footy that Port Adelaide played last week against the Carlton Blues, nearly leaving them goalless in that first half of footy, I think they could go into this game and they could be pretty powerful. Georgiades really does provide a lot to the Port Adelaide Power, and he's been an absolute gun this season. Probably one of his best seasons, if not his best season that he's played in his career. Although the Lions have got the overall better side. But I mean, with Connor Rozee, Brownlow medalist Ollie Wines, and even Zach Butters, of course, I just still don't think they will get up this week, considering how good the Brisbane Lions side is currently. They've got Cam Rayner, Charlie Cameron, Callum Archie, Zach Bailey and Eric Hipp would have been pretty impressive. Obviously, both the Ashcrofts in the midfield. Zorko's been really good. Neil, Brownlow medalist as well. Dunkley, I feel like, has gone unnoticed this year, but I feel like it's just the little things and he's just really been really good at. Jeez, can I say really anymore? Maybe if this was in Adelaide, I'd consider going the upset, but I'm going to play it safe this week and I'm going to go the Lions to win this game by 15 points. Alright, at 7:40 p.m. at Marvel Stadium, we have the St Kilda Saints taking on the Hawthorn Hawks. This is 15th place taking on 5th place. I feel like both teams should be really proud of what they were able to achieve last week, even though St Kilda did actually lose against Fremantle. Although that was only a 12-point loss, and to be honest, I expected Fremantle to go out there and pump them. But St Kilda did really stay in the game throughout the entire time, with them actually leading at 3/4 time. Nasiah Wanganeen-Malira racked up 28 disposals last week. Jack McRae had a pretty impressive game as well, with 28 disposals tied with him. Keeler kicked 2 goals. Higgins should have kicked 3, hit 1 goal too. As for the Hawks though, 85-point win against North Melbourne. How good is that? They kicked 23 goals in that singular match, with the final scores being 150-65. Jack Gunston kicked a total of 7 goals, which honestly makes Marbior Chol's 5 goals look absolutely pathetic, but obviously credits to him as well. Carl Amon had 33 touches of the pill. Meek had 37 hitouts, and that was against Tristan Sherry, so that's pretty impressive by Meek. Newcomb played well as always, and to be honest, if Hawthorn weren't coming off an 85-point win and maybe it was only like a 20-point win or something like that, I'd probably go the upset in St Kilda, to be honest. But I think Hawthorn, they're going to go into this game heavy confidence, chest held up high. It's going to be a close one. I think Hawthorn win the game by 7. Now moving on to the Sunday day at the SCG at 1:10 PM, we have the Sydney Swans taking on the Fremantle Dockers. This is 12th place taking on 6th place. Both teams are still trying to prove themselves in 2025. Obviously, Fremantle do currently sit in the top 8, but they're still sort of 50-50 about whether or not they're going to finish inside there by the end of round 24. As for the Swans, they've shown very little positive signs this year, and that's after coming off a grand final loss in 2024. Although with the likes of Papley back in the side, he was a really huge impact last week against the Dogs. Unfortunately, the Swans did end up losing the game by 9 points though. Isaac Heaney kicked 5 goals though. Tom Papley kicks 2. Errol Goulden had 30 disposals, and I mean Nick Blakey off the half-back had 24 possessions as well. As for Fremantle, Tracy kicked 3 goals, Jackson kicked 2, one of them being after the siren. Clark had 31 possessions, and I mean Brayshaw and Tarong are currently averaging 28 disposals a game. As for the Swans, Goulden's averaging 24, Heaney's averaging 23, and Mills is averaging 22. Fremantle will go into this game as favourites as they are the overall better team. But I'll tell you what, at the SCG, that's where you'll find the Swans at their strongest, and I'm actually going to tip the Swans to win the game this week. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. They need this win to their name to jump up a little bit higher in the ladder, just to say, hey guys, we're still a part of this competition and we're still able to play finals footy in 2025. So I think the Swans win this game. It'll be a close one. The Swans win by 2 goals. And to conclude this final round of footy at the Adelaide Oval at 3:15 PM, we have the Adelaide Crows taking on the Melbourne Demons. Look, you can't really have any hope as a Melbourne fan going into this game, can you? Even with the likes of Petrarca, Viney and Oliver, who have been really impressive this year. Max Gawn, I think he's still the #1 ruckman in the comp, despite a few ruckmans obviously jumping higher and higher in the ranks. But when you're going up to players like Josh Rochelle, Riley Thilthorpe, Darcy Fogarty, Isaac Rankin, Ben Keys, the list can go on and on and on. Jordan Dawson, I think, is currently the best player in the competition. I mention this almost every week, but I think he deserves to win the Brownlow. But he won't win the Brownlow. It'll be Bailey Smith. Crouch has had a pretty good season, I feel. The Crows do currently sit at 3rd on the ladder. This is one of the best seasons they've had in a hot minute. Crows could be the real deal this season, I'm telling ya. I think they will get up this week. It should be a smashing. I think Crows win by 35 plus. And that does wrap up this round of tipping. I hope you all did enjoy, and I hope to see you all in the next bit of content that I post here on the channel.